morning, brethren. Welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Today is June 26, 2022. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. We have the Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade. We have the Second Amendment case in New York. And unfortunately, we have another sad incident involving guns again. This time, 6-month-old little baby was shot by drive-through and died. That's unfortunate. But anyway, we're going to get to all of that. But first, let's dive straight into the Roe v. Wade issue. I'm going to start by a little history of Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade pretty much happened with a lady called Jane Roe. That wasn't her actual name. Her actual name, I think, was some McVoy. But they used the name Roe, Jane Roe. This young lady was pregnant at the time. And at the time, most of America, the states controlled abortion laws. In essence, most of the states have laws whether and when to have abortion. And most of them were very, very restrictive. I mean, as a matter of fact, there were only 4 states prior to the Roe decision in America that pretty much had abortion laws that a woman could just go in there and decide that she doesn't want the baby and have abortion. Only 4 states. I think these states were Hawaii, Alaska, and another 2 states. So even in the mainland United States of America, prior to the 1973 decision, all the states had very restrictive or abortion was illegal. I mean, even California. I mean, you talk about California, you talk about New York, you talk about New Jersey, you talk about Connecticut, all these liberal states today. Some of them, abortion was illegal. And secondly, even for you to have abortion, you have to have a case to make before you be given the opportunity to have an abortion. In essence, if you didn't have a situation where it was incest or rape or the health of the mother, you couldn't have abortion. So abortion was very, very restrictive back then. Okay, so this lady called Jane Roe wanted to have abortion. But prior to that, the issue had been cropping up in Texas. And the district attorney, because of the Texas statute, most of the cases were not going through like it's supposed to. So this case came up, Jane Roe, and then 2 young attorneys from the University of Texas took up the case, filed a suit against the district attorney in Dallas, Texas, by the name of Henry Wade. So that's how we got Roe v. Wade. So this case first went to a 3-panel judge who ruled that the statute of Texas was too vague. So in essence, basically went against Texas in a way, but they didn't really outline what the next step on that issue. So the Attorney General, the District Attorney General Wade, appealed the judgment. And then even the Roe attorneys also appealed it and eventually went to the United States Supreme Court. Now, the United States Supreme Court took up the case and argued the case on the basis of also in terms of the Texas statute. And eventually, Roe v. Wade was settled at that time, 1973, where it was 7-2 judgment. 7 justices were for making abortion legal, and then 2 justices were against it. So that is how come Roe v. Wade became law in the United States of America. But now let's go back prior to Roe v. Wade. How did all this start? Abortion, like I said before, was an illegal thing in America. I mean, the lady who founded Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger herself, she started her clinic in Brooklyn, New York in 1916, basically as a contraceptive clinic for birth control. So basically, she was arguing for birth control for women, in essence, so that women don't have to go through the vigorous process of abortion and all that stuff. And even that time, birth contraceptions was an issue in America at that time. America was very conservative, if you're looking at it, you know. So contraceptive itself wasn't an issue that even you could make, like you can make today. So Margaret Sanger, who founded her clinic in Brooklyn, New York, eventually that clinic became what we call the Planned Parenthood organization today. Now, with the decision of the Supreme Court now in place, on this morning talk shows, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, all the talk shows, you hear all these senators. As a matter of fact, two particular senators, Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, from Massachusetts. If you know Elizabeth Warren, she's a very liberal senator. I was surprised that, and I wasn't surprised because she was proposing that Biden declare an national health emergency because of the decision by the Supreme Court. And then you also had her saying that this is the time the Democrats have to start packing the courts, which to me doesn't make sense. Either case doesn't make sense to me. Because even if you look at the issue of Roe, you go back, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the liberal lion, who unfortunately died, what was it, last year. Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself and most scholars at the time when the Roe decision came about pretty much came to the agreement that the decision was a flawed decision, in the sense that the abortion right decision should never have been dealt by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court should have left it to the states to make that decision. So most scholars, even liberal scholars in America, whether liberal or conservative, both agree that that decision should have been left to the states. The Supreme Court should never have touched that issue. Nevertheless, it happened, and we got Roe and v. Wade. But going back prior to Roe v. Wade also, and you look at America as a country at that time, like I said, only 4 states in America had legal abortion. All the other states in America, abortion was illegal. And in cases where you can have abortion also, they were very restrictive. Like today, liberals complaining about states like Mississippi, Texas, Arkansas, Georgia, and all those places. Look, prior to 1971, 1973 the Roe decision, abortion in America was so restrictive, way more than what you're hearing today. Now, the question that I have right now is, I hope that these states will not start passing laws criminalizing women who will cross state lines to have abortion. When it gets to that point, that is where it will become a totally different issue, because at that point, I think we have to do something about it. I'm a strong advocate for the right of women to have abortion. I've always supported women's rights, period. I've always supported women's rights. But unfortunately, where we are right now with this decision, I think the best thing for the Democrats and anybody who supports abortion rights is that they have to set shop at all the border states of restrictive abortion laws, or states that are going to ban abortion altogether, like states like Texas, Utah, and all those places. I mean, Utah to Colorado, Utah to California is not that far. So set up abortion clinics at the borders of these states to make it easy for women who live in states like Utah or Texas, where they have very restrictive abortion laws, so that they can go to these states and have abortion. I mean, that is the only recourse that right now women have. Because, I mean, what else can they do? Because now this is the law. I mean, you cannot do anything. I mean, even though I understand the liberal concept, I understand the mindset of most of the liberal senators who are very angry. Yes, you have the right to be angry. But the question is, what can you do now? Because remember, what the Republicans had always done was to make sure that they will keep putting in, nominating conservative judges. And I made a video a couple of weeks ago about Donald Trump. And I did say in that video that you can take Reagan. Reagan is the man when you talk about the Republican Party. The GOP, there was nobody, that GOP hailed more than Ronald Reagan. But if you look at policy-wise, during his term as the president, two-term president of the United States, and you look at Donald Trump, what Donald Trump gave the conservatives, no Republican president have given so much to the conservatives than Donald Trump. The conservatives can say all they want to say about Donald Trump, the way he talks and the way he does this and that and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, no conservative will tell you that Donald Trump was a bad president on policy-wise, because he wasn't. He has given them more than anybody else have given the Republican Party. And all this came about because, one, of Donald Trump, and then two, I will go with Harry Reid. Harry Reid was the senator from Majority Leader in about 8, 10, 12 years ago, I guess. It's been a while. He died a couple of years ago. He was the Majority Leader. And it was Harry Reid who changed the Senate rules. Because before, the nomination of judges, the Senate, you have to have 60 votes for a judge to go through the Senate to become a federal judge. And then the Democrats took control of the Senate that year, and because they wanted to push through some judges that Republicans were against, what did Harry Reid do? Harry Reid decided to change the rules in the Senate from 60 votes to a simple majority. So if you liberals, Democrats, if you're going to be angry, there's nobody to be more angry at than Harry Reid, former Senator Harry Reid of Nevada. I'm sorry, because it was that decision by Harry Reid, because it was a short-sighted decision that he made at that time, because they wanted to push through some judges at that time. They decided that it was good for them to change the rules from 60 votes to simple majority. And they got it at that time. Then lo, behold, what happens? Donald Trump became president. Now, prior to that, Republicans now have gained the majority. Okay? They have now gained the majority. Obama had opportunity, which he did. He nominated Merrick Garland to become what? Supreme Court Justice after the death of Anthony Scalia. But because the Republicans controlled the Senate at that time, they were able to hold off that. They held off Obama's nomination. They didn't even consider hearing that nominee. And eventually, Trump wins 2016. So Trump's coming, and now the Republicans are in charge of the Senate. And now Trump nominates for, what do you call it, the guy's name? Is it Gorsuch? Or Kavanaugh to become a justice, Supreme Court justice. And now remember, it takes only simple majority. So because it takes only simple majority, all the Republicans needed was what? 51 votes. 51 votes. That's all they needed, my brothers and sisters. You know what? And then what happened? It went through. And then after that came Barrett. And she also went through it. So if you look at what is happening today, there's nobody to blame other than the Democrats themselves, especially Senator Harry Reid of Nevada. Because if Senator Harry Reid had not changed that rule in the Senate, we would never have had Kavanaugh and Barrett to change 50-year precedents. 50-year precedents of Roe v. Wade. Now it's gone. So you don't have anybody to blame. Don't be angry with the Republicans. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. No. We don't have to be angry at the Republicans at all. The Republicans haven't done you anything wrong. All the Republicans did was they took the opportunity and packed the courts with conservative judges. That's what they did. They've been doing what the Republicans have been doing for since George Bush. Pretty much is at the lower courts, they were started packing up judges, conservative judges. That is what the Republicans have been doing. I mean, can you believe even when Obama became president, they had so many vacancies for judges. He couldn't even fill all of them before he left. Because the Democrats did not take that as serious as the Republicans did. So the Republicans did something that the Democrats have to start considering doing. Because it starts from the lower courts before it gets all the way up there. And what did they do? Because they've been chipping away this issue going back late 90s, in the 2000s, during George Bush. States, they've been filing these lawsuits and they've been going to the Supreme Court and they've been chipping away this Roe versus Wade decision gradually. And finally, they got the 6 votes. They didn't need 6, though they didn't, it was 5. But they got 6. You know, they got 6 tanks. Donald Trump gave them 3 more. And now, Roe v. Wade is gone. So Roe v. Wade is gone now. I mean, what can you do? I mean, now the thing goes back to the states. It goes back to the states. So basically now the states are the ones who are going to set abortion laws in this country. And a lot of them have already trigger laws. So immediately this decision came about, the trigger laws, it triggers and then it takes effect. A state like Utah already have it. And so it takes right away, it goes right into effect now. You know, but all we can do, those who believe in the right of a woman to choose for her own body, what she wants, all we have to do, like I said, is set up clinics close to these states who have very restrictive laws, the borders. And then get the federal government, I mean, as much as the federal government can support in terms of financing, or, I mean, people have to donate or whatever we have to do to make sure that it will become easier for these women who will be in states like Texas, Utah, Louisiana, Mississippi. They can, you know, travel to states where abortion will be legal. So that is the only solution to me that we have right now. I mean, there's no solution to parking the courts like Elizabeth Warren is suggesting. I mean, you're going to park the court. How long is it going to take you to park the courts? I mean, it's not even going to happen. I mean, come on. I mean, you have to go through amendments and all that stuff. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You know, it's not going to work. So forget about parking the courts. To me, that's nonsense in the first place. Look at the practical solutions that you can have right now. You know, and like I said also, hopefully these states don't pass laws that will criminalize women who will travel to other states where abortion is legal to have abortions. Because if they pass laws like that, then that becomes a different ball game. That becomes a very, very different ball game. So, to Senator Warren, let's focus on what we can do right now, which is helping these women. Because right now you cannot have these parking of the court and declaring health emergency. What is that going to do? I mean, that is not going to do anything. You know, the only thing that you can do is let Biden, let the administration fund, have enough money into the Department of Health and Human Services, and then set up a program where they can funnel a lot of this money to these states that will have these clinics along the border states that have legal abortion, so that they can accommodate these new women who will be coming from the states that have made abortion illegal or very, very, very restrictive. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the issue of gun laws. This was New York. New York had a very restrictive gun laws. Like I've said before, I'm a very strong Second Amendment believer. I believe in the right to own a gun. I believe in the right to bear arms. So I believe in the right to keep and bear arms. And as far as you are a law-abiding citizen, you have no criminal background, I think you should have the right to keep and bear arms. Period. That is my opinion. But the New York State case was brought about by the Rifle and Pistol Association of New York. New York have always had one of the most strictest gun laws in the country. And the New York gun law was that if let's say you even have a permit to own a gun and you want to bear your gun, in which case you want to have your gun on you, concealed weapon on you, if let's say you deem like going to the hunting or going to a place where you think it's dangerous or whatever reason, for you to do that, to bear your gun, remember there's a difference to right to keep and to bear. Because the Second Amendment says that you have the right to keep and to bear. To keep is to own the gun. And then to bear is to be able to carry the gun with you. So the the Rifle and Pistol Association of New York filed a lawsuit against New York State. Whereas New York State had a law that says that for you to bear your gun, for you to be able to take your gun with you to wherever you want to go, you have to have a special permit from the state. So the Rifle and Pistol Association of New York filed a lawsuit against New York State. And Lord and behold, what happened? The justices, again, 6-3 decision, struck down that New York law. And now this thing is going to trigger all over the country. I think Washington, Illinois, Maryland, and a lot of liberal states have these restrictive gun laws. All of them will be affected. But even in that ruling, the justices also made it clear that still the state can control certain areas, let's say like church or schools, where you cannot bear arms there. But in general, it gives people who own guns the right to bear their guns at any other place except places where the state would deem restrictive, like schools or churches and so on. Now, talking about guns, Chicago happens to have one of the most strictest gun laws in the country. This is going to affect them too, and it makes sense for it to affect them, because without even the most restrictive gun, with even the most restrictive gun laws in one of the most restrictive gun laws in the country, just last night, 6-month-old baby was killed in Chicago by drive-by shooting. 6-month-old baby was killed in Chicago by drive-by shooting. And I mean, and this is what we've heard from the news. But it's nothing new in Chicago. And this is one of the cities in America that have the most strictest gun laws in America. One of the most strictest gun laws. As a matter of fact, Chicago and Washington, D.C. and New York, these three have the most strictest gun laws in America. And you look at the crime rate in these cities, and you ask yourself, if you have all these strict gun laws and still you have this crime rates, then how can you justify that these gun laws are working? And yet you still see people come on TV anytime there's a gun ruling about something, talking about, oh, and this is going to create this is going to create. Are you kidding me? What is this going to create? Look at your cities. Look at the crime rates there. With all these strict gun laws, look at your cities and look at the crime rates. It's appalling. And yet still, these same people will come and sit on TV, make statements talking about how these gun laws will do this, how these gun laws. I mean, come on. You see, the reason why these people do that, like I've always said, because they don't want to be responsible for what is right to curb this violence. Because they always want to find somebody to blame. So now they blame the laws. It's because of the laws that the Supreme Court have deemed unconstitutional, that somehow that is the reason why it's going to create a sort of floodgate for people to be killing. Hold on. That's not true. The people who have been doing these killings in all these major cities in America are not law-abiding citizens. According to their own data, about 95%, from 90 to 95% of gun violence in America are committed by criminals. 90 to 95% of gun violence in America are committed by criminals. Now the question is, how do these criminals get these guns? How do these criminals get these guns? That is where the issue should be. It's not the law-abiding citizen who went through the FBI checklist and went through all the processes to acquire the gun legally. They are not the ones going around killing people. They are the criminals doing all these killings. So the question is, if we know that 90 to 95% of the violence in our cities are being committed by criminals, then why don't we have stronger, tough laws to go after these criminals? Why don't we do that? But rather, we're going to focus on the law-abiding citizens who have acquired guns to protect themselves and their families, just to make a political statement. You know what? Guns have been part of American culture. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. It's been part of American culture from the very foundation of this country. From the very foundation of this country, guns has always been part of this country. And it's not going nowhere. You know? I mean, you go to the southern states, you go to the northern states, I mean, you go to Midwest, California, people have guns. I mean, I know a lot of you will even be surprised. Bernie Sanders, a senator from Vermont. We all know how liberal Bernie Sanders is. I mean, Bernie Sanders is what? I mean, some Republicans call him communist. Basically, he's a communist, but he claims he's a socialist, you know, which I will agree with him. I mean, to me, I think he's more socialist, communist, whatever. But Bernie Sanders is if not the most liberal senator in America. Have you ever heard Bernie Sanders propose anything with regards to gun laws? You know why? Go to his state of Vermont. Vermont is one of the states that has the high per capita of guns ownership in America. It's the state of Vermont. And that is where Bernie Sanders is from. So Bernie Sanders is not going to touch that because he knows it. He knows it because they do a lot of hunting. It's part of a family tradition in these states where the family, they pass it on from generation to generation. So it's part of them. So he knows that. So he's not going to touch it. You know? So let's look at what is causing these violences in these cities. A lot of these things are happening because of gangs. You know? Some start up in the high schools and then they end up, you know, after high school, and it continues. You know? So let's find a better way of dealing with this situation. But the situation is not going to be dealt with by just trying to come up with these restrictive gun laws and all that. Like I've also said always, if a criminal knows that you have a gun in your house, or if a criminal knows that you have a gun, they will not even try to rob you. They will dare not try even to come to your house, to break into your house, or to try to do anything to harm you, because they know. If you know Mr. Daniels, Mr. Davis, Mr. Martin has a gun, do you think that criminal will try to go to Mr. Martin's house to try and break into Mr. Martin's house? Heck no. Because he knows when he tries that and Mr. Martin gets hold of him, Mr. Martin is going to kill him. He knows that. See, this is why I have always said that, look, I'm an advocate. I'm a very strong Second Amendment believer. I can be very liberal on certain things, and I can be very conservative on certain things. But when it comes to this, I strongly believe in the Second Amendment, because I believe that if people, law-abiding people, in any country, law-abiding people in any country, doesn't matter whether it's in Ghana, it's in America, it's in Nigeria, it's in Timbuktu, or it's in Sweden or wherever, as far as you are a law-abiding citizen, you should have the right to have a gun to protect yourself and your family. It's that simple. And when you have that, that can curb down violence against innocent people. It does. I mean, look at the state of Texas. Look at you. I mean, even if you want to do a survey in America, look at the southern states. Look at the southern states and look at the gun violence situation in the southern states and compare it to the northern states, the liberal states who have all these restrictive laws. Just look at these two areas, the south and the northern states, where the northern states have very less liberal, restrictive gun laws, and then look at the southern states. And look at the crime rates in the southern states and then the northern states. And then you go figure. If the restrictive gun laws have prevented criminals from owning guns and committing all this violence in these states, it hasn't. It hasn't. You know, like Einstein said one time, you know, it's only a fool who keeps doing something over and over and over and over and over again, expecting a different result. It's not going to happen. And that is where we've been stuck up with this idea that somehow by coming up with these restrictive gun laws and this very, very restrictive gun laws and all that stuff, is somehow is going to change the dynamics of violence. When most of these violence are happening in the very states that have the highest restrictive gun laws on books in America. So we have to look at a different tune now. I mean, I think it's about time we look at different tune with regards to that issue. But also, let me go back to the case of the abortion case. Like I said, the best thing is for the women to have this the states that borders the hardcore states with very restrictive abortion laws, to help have these clinics very close to the states, so it becomes easier. And also have programs where most of these women who have to fly in some cases pay for their transportation as well, because you know most of these women who tend to go for abortions and all these things tend to come from very low income background, you know, and it's going to be very burdensome. That one, nobody can dispute that. You can never dispute this. It's going to be very burdensome on these women, because first of all, they're trying to make a living, and unfortunately they don't have the means to now go travel from one state, you know, spend all that money to another state to have abortion. But let's also ramp up the contraception, you know, situation where in case like either you're going to provide free contraceptions, you know, make it available to people, women in these states, to make it also easier for them to use those contraceptions to avoid a situation where they have to go in for abortions, you know. So all these factors have to be taken into consideration. Yes, you have to look at all the avenues available, and then try to, use those things to make sure that these women who are going to be in states with very restrictive abortion laws can find a way out of this situation. But like I also said earlier, if you go back prior to 1973 Roe v. Wade case decision, you realize that even right now, based on the data that we have now, basically about 24 states have the restrictive abortion laws on the books in this country right now. 24 states. So you have about 26 states that pretty much you can go and have abortions in there. But looking back prior to Roe v. Wade in 1973, like I said earlier, before America, there were only 4 states in America, and 2 of the states were Hawaii and Alaska. Okay? So basically, in the mainland, you had either, I think, 2 states in the mainland. So if you're looking at prior to 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision, and now, if you're looking at, you try to compare back then and to today it's a little even better. Access to abortion today is way, way, way better. It is unfortunate that it's been overturned, but in reality also, you're looking at it today, the situation we are in today is far better than the situation prior to 1973. Because 1973, if you look on the American map, almost every state, abortion was illegal in every state. Okay? It was illegal in every state. And where you can have abortions, they have all these restrictive laws. Some were even more restrictive than the ones you have now in Mississippi and Texas and Utah. I mean, you can go back and you realize that in some cases you have to be incest or rape. And then you also have to show in some cases where the woman's life is in danger, and therefore they have to have abortion to avoid any fatalities. That is how it was. But also, you have to also understand, most of these abortion laws came about because of religion. Let's be upfront with this. I mean, this has more to do with religion than anything else. But nobody is talking about it. Because back then, even if you look at the states, predominantly Catholic states had very restrictive abortion laws, or have abortion was illegal. That's a fact. Predominantly Catholic states, because in the Catholic religion, abortion is a sin. So if you look at most of those states, and you had abortion either being illegal or very, very restrictive. And then you look at the southern states, the evangelicals also basically have the same belief. So if you look at the issue of abortion in America, one dynamic to this issue is religion. No ifs and buts about it. It has more to do with religion than anything else. But like I stated, I'm a firm believer in the woman's right to choose whether to have abortion or not to have abortion, because I'm a top dog libertarian, period. I don't believe in government intrusion. I don't believe in government telling anybody what to do with their body. Now, also in the same ruling, there was opinion written by Clarence Thomas, and in that opinion, Clarence Thomas pretty much was talking about looking at other cases that they think the Supreme Court decisions that were made in those cases, they erred in making that decisions. They have to go back and look at them, just like they have come back to look at Roe v. Wade and decided to change it. And so I heard some people also talking about cases involving the gay rights issue, gay marriage, But the gay marriage issue, to me, I don't think gay right or gay marriage advocates have to be worried, because that is a totally different issue, because when you talk about equal protection clause in the 14th Amendment and then the due process in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, the gay rights or gay marriage, they have a very good standing on that case. I mean, I don't see how you can go back and take that away from gay people who have decided to marry themselves. You know, I mean that thing, I think is more settled, because you can, the equal protection clause, I mean that is something you cannot touch. And what do you call it, Senator Graham, who happens to be a lawyer, member of the Judicial Committee, pretty much affirmed that too. He said that because the equal protection clause in the U.S. Constitution, there's no way you can make a case against gay marriage. And then the due process also in the 14th Amendment. You can, there's no way you can make a case against that. You know, so with that case, with that particular issue, people should rest in peace, peacefully. They shouldn't even worry about that, because it's not going to happen. Because there's no case to be made against going back against gay marriage. No, the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, you can never overlook that. That is what pretty much the gay marriage case was able to be made. And remember, it was what do you call it? Former Solicitor General, staunch conservative, who argued in that case on behalf of the gay rights advocates. Staunch conservative, former Solicitor General of George Bush. Yes, Olson. He was the one who took up that case and won that case for the for gay rights marriage, gay marriage in America. So we are not talking about some liberal jurist or some liberal lawyer who went on a staunch conservative. Staunch. I mean, I'm talking about, if you talk about conservative, Olson, former Solicitor General under George Bush. Yes, he was the lead attorney. He was the lead attorney in the case that won the gay marriage for the gay people. So that particular case, I don't think they have an issue there. I mean, I don't know the other cases that Clarence Thomas is talking about, but in terms of one of the key cases that I've heard about, people, you know, wondering if what they're going to do, are they going to take away their rights as gay people having the ability to marry? No, that one, the rest, I think, I'll say about 95% sure that case is not going nowhere. That case will stay. It's not going to happen. And then I don't know about if the issue of I mean, outside of that case, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what Clarence Thomas is talking about, but I don't think it's gonna create any problems, you know, because that case is settled. I mean, when it comes to the gay marriage and all that stuff. So I mean, it's been a hell of a week, you know, with this Supreme Court ruling, you know, against reproductive freedom, that is what it is, you know. It's been against reproductive freedom by women. It is unfortunate, but that is what a democratic society is all about, you know. Democratic societies, you deal with situations, and situations goes through the court, you know. I mean, goes through the court, because when this issue, especially the Roe issue, came about, the Democrats, knowing what they know today, would have maybe have made it a more of a legislative. In essence, if they had done it through Congress and made a law to guarantee the woman's right to abortion, maybe we wouldn't be talking about this. But at that time also, the question is, I mean, if you want to make an amendment or go through that process, you know, it's not easy to have a constitutional amendment in America. I mean, you need what? 2/3 of the states, you know, and outside of that, then you have to come to the Congress and the Senate. So it's a very, very tough thing to do when you try to amend the Constitution. So basically, I mean, it wasn't easy for them to do anything about this situation, But it's a very sad situation. But also looking at it, like I said earlier, all the legal scholars in this country, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself, yes, yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself said it that she herself said it that the decision on Roe versus Wade should have been left with the state. So most scholars agreed that was a decision that should have been left with the states, but the Supreme Court decided to step in it. They stepped in it, and 50 years later, you have another Supreme Court that decided, you know what, let's go and correct the mistakes that were made 50 years ago, and decided that it's time to do it, and they did it. So conservatives, they have nobody to thank other than Donald Trump. There's nobody to thank when it comes to this issue than Donald Trump, because if it wasn't for Donald Trump, I don't think we'll be talking about Roe v. Wade today. Donald Trump is the one they have to thank, and then also they have to thank what they call it, Harry Reid. Harry Reid also have helped a lot, because if Harry Reid did not change the Senate rules from 60 to 51 simple majority, we wouldn't be talking about Roe v. Wade. We wouldn't be talking about Roe v. Wade. That was the dumbest and biggest mistake the Democrats made. That is where this problem lies. Because remember, Roe v. Wade has been around from 1973 through how many Republican presidents? Through Ronald Reagan. I'm going to start with Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, and then who? Obama. So we're talking about what? About 6 or 7? Trump. About 6 or 7 Republican presidents. It started with Nixon was the president when Roe v. Wade decision came. As a matter of fact, at that time, the Republicans held presidents have nominated most of the Supreme Court justices. So you talk about that decision to make abortion legal in America was pretty much made by justices who were Republican appointed justices. They weren't Democrat justices. They were all Republican. Majority of them were Republican, because Republican justices were the ones who made Roe v. Wade legal in America. So back then the Republican Party was different. It's not the same Republican Party today, because today you wouldn't have that same kind of Republican justices. Now, today is totally different. But that was then. So you had Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, and then Donald Trump. And then finally, it gets overturned under a Democratic president, Biden. So 6 Republican presidents, Roe versus Wade was still intact. 6 Republican presidents. And in the course of that 6 Republican presidents, the Republicans at one point controlled both houses, both the Senate and the House, Congress. They controlled both of it in some point, of these Republican presidencies. So if it wasn't for Harry Reid changing these Senate rules that made it from supermajority to a simple majority, we wouldn't be talking about what we are talking about today, because it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. How is it going to happen? If you needed 60 votes, do you know how hard it is to come by 60 votes in the Senate? It's not easy. You can't even get 55 votes, let alone get 60. But because of short-sightedness, because at that time they were looking at what they can get within that time. So they decided to forego something that had been part of the Senate that had prevented situations of one party in power using their power over the minority party in the Senate. They forgot all about that and said, "Oh, let's take advantage of it. So let's change the Senate rules so we can run through what we want." You know, not thinking that there will be a time where a Republican president will be in the White House. There will be a time where the Republicans will also become the majority in the Senate. And they will use that same rule that you have put in place to advance their agenda. And that is what they did. And that is what they have done. So Democrats, liberals, if you have to be angry, don't be angry at Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump promised the Republican Party. He told them he was going to put in place and make sure he nominates conservative judges. Donald Trump said it. He didn't lie to nobody. He said it. That's what he was going to do. And that is what he did. And the end result is what we have today, which is the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So like I said earlier, let's forget about what has been done. The milk has already been spilled. You can't go and clean it anymore. Let's leave it. Let's move on. Now all we have to do is set up clinics. I mean, that's my opinion. You set up clinics along the border states. That is what you have to do. Set up clinics close to the border states of the states with very strict abortion laws. If it borders a liberal state that don't have abortion is legal, you just set up clinics so it becomes convenient. So it becomes very, very convenient for these women who will need abortions to travel across state lines. And hopefully these states will not come up with laws to criminalize any woman who travels across state lines, because I think that is what some of these states will do, because they know definitely also that some of these liberal states are going to be enticing these women to come from their states to come and have abortion in their states. And I think some of these states will put in place laws where if they know that a woman travels from their state to a state to have abortion, maybe they can prosecute her for that. And I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that point. Now you have your choice. You something that you've been working for, eventually, finally, you've gotten it. You got it, Republicans in these conservative states. You already have it. So don't do too much with it. Don't go ahead and come up with laws to criminalize or prosecute women who will travel from your states to liberal states to have abortion. It is a very unfortunate week, but that is what we have to deal with. There's been so many issues, and the last one that I ever thought was going to come about was this Roe v. Wade. Even though the draft that was leaked about a month ago, it became clear that there was nothing was going to change in that draft that was leaked. But I can't imagine people like Rush Limbaugh, people like Rush Limbaugh, Henry Hyde, all these old, strong, staunch conservatives, how happy they'll be kicking themselves in their graves, because this is something those people were fighting for. And these same people I'm talking about, outside of Rush Limbaugh, I think Rush Limbaugh was still alive. He died a couple of years, the last year or 2 years ago. But he was alive when Trump was president. So with him, eventually came around to Trump. But somebody like Henry Hyde, Orrin Hatch, those guys, I don't think will even think about voting for Donald Trump. But if they were to be alive today to see what has happened to Roe v. Wade, I mean, they will take their hats off for Trump. There's no two ways about that. You know, there's no way two ways about that. So that is what it is. I wanted to talk about something that a friend sent me with regards to some issues in Africa about the economic situation and all that stuff. But I decided to talk about this issue because of the, impact that this decision by the Supreme Court, the overall impact, and that is the news of the week. So I decided to skip over that and get into this issue and deal with this issue for this week. So hopefully next weekend we will come back and we'll be here next weekend. And when we talking next weekend, we'll be talking about that issue that I originally I had planned talking about. It's mainly an economic issue, economic and political issue. So thank you guys for tuning in today. There's nothing more I can say about you guys always taking a Sunday off to listening to this program. If I haven't said anything to offend you, or if I did say something to offend you, I'm sorry for that. But if I also said something that inspired you, or you learned something from it, then I hope you thank me for that. So you can go to the YouTube channel and just subscribe, and also leave comments there. If there's something that you want us to talk about, maybe with regards to your country, because this show is about Africa anyway, and the diaspora. But I also talk about American issues that affects Americans with regards to the blacks, Asians, every American. And so one way or the other, some of these issues, you hear about them in Africa, you hear about them in the Caribbean, and I know some people will say, oh, they said America, they have abolished abortion and all this and that. Abortion has been abolished. The Supreme Court has struck down an old law, precedent of 50 years, that basically made abortion legal within all of America. What they have done is giving the states now the right to make that decisions. So still, you have about 26 states, and even the 24 states that abortion is, it's not like most of the 24 states have abolished or made abortion illegal outright. What they have done is they go and what most of them have started doing years back is making it more difficult, very restrictive. Like I said, just like prior to the 73 Roe v. Wade decision, and if you're comparing prior to 73 Roe v. Wade decision to now, look, you can't even compare, because now, looking at it, I'm looking at both incidences. I'm talking about prior to 73 and now. You can't even compare it, because if you're looking at it that way, now it's way better. Way better. Now you can still have abortion. Most of even these 24 states that have very restrictive laws in place. The only thing is, a lot of them have this number of weeks. So if you fall within those number of weeks, you can still have abortions in these states. And if you have situation with incest or with rape and all of that stuff, you can still have abortions in those places. It is only when it go beyond that, like the weeks prescribed in those states, or if that it's too late, then you can maybe go to other states where the laws are very more liberal and more reasonable. So anyway, like I said before, thank you guys for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you guys next Sunday. If it's Sunday, it's the African Weekly Talk.